If you're FMCG, the best market research you can do is to we used to say that in our day, दुकान पे जाके खड़े हो जा. So you go stand by the दुकान and observe your users. What do they do? What do they say, etc. Like that. Someone comes in and say, I want that cake. I say, hey, don't take this cake, take the other cake, etc. He or she says, no, I want this cake because of this, etc. Because mummy boli hai, because इसमें palm oil ज़्यादा है, because ये है, whatever it is people say. But you get to get real insights which you won't get on the other side of the mirror in your AC room that a market research agency is conducting for you, right? So in case of beautiful ways you can do, like if you're running an airline company, do you know the kind of stories you can gather by just standing at the check-in counter? Like if you're a brand manager for an airline, just go stand outside a check-in counter. Insane stories you'll get.
Guest today has a phenomenal background of building digital first brands. As he himself admits, the marketing rules are turned on its head as digital brands reshape and recreate marketing methods and algorithms. He's an engineering graduate from NIT Trichy and a management graduate from IIM Calcutta. Our guest today is Srinjoy Das, Associate Director Marketing Krafton, one of the world's leading gaming companies. He spoke on a wide range of topics, which included the importance of marketers in having a good grip in finance and how finance knowledge helps marketers get a seat on the table with the CEO and CFO. We then discussed the essential methods of building content and context and how it can help build memorable campaigns. Srinjoy then talked about the importance of virality in campaigns and how it helps build customer engagement and customer obsession with brands. I asked him about the new business metrics that he looks at and thinks are important and what are the skills that are critical for marketers to succeed in the future. Over to my conversation with Srinjoy Das. So you're from NIT Trichy, and then you did your IIM Cal, and how is it a civil engineer actually started getting interested in marketing?
So, to be honest, civil engineering courses these days mostly act as giving you an analytical bent of mind, and so that was like the kickstarting point. I used to look at a company's books a lot during my 3G days, and then I found out that there is, while a lot of things companies were doing would have direct impact in what the output they produce. For example, the profit pools and whatnot. So for example, if you set up 20 factories, then you're likely to get a 20 times increase in revenue. If you increase capex, you're likely to get higher profit pools. If you can do good margin expansion, your profits increase, right? Marketing was always, I found, extremely random as a variable. Some companies did tremendously good marketing and got really good results, and some companies did not, right? So that was very fascinating. What it meant is that marketing really needs skills, right? Everything else is about execution itself is very difficult. I completely get that. But marketing is skills, like the likes of Nestle and Coke in India, P&G in back in those days. The kind of marketing that they did, it took a lot of skills, and I could see that it gave them results, which is very interesting. I found out. So obviously, when I went to B school, read a lot of case studies as to what companies globally have been doing, what companies locally have been doing. So that was, I think, very interesting that I found out, and it helped me understand marketing from a very different lens than what people do, which is more from a financial point of view. And also, if you read a lot of case studies, you understand all the ways you can do marketing, and not necessarily the way marketing was done in the noughties, in the early teens in India, right? So that is where I thought that this is interesting, right? Marketing is not just putting out great ad films, and it is more about how you can add value to a company's bottom line as well as the top line.
So, what was interesting to me about your career in marketing was you have largely been in a startup ecosystem, right? So, a lot of young companies, funded companies with Sequoia and stuff like that is really where I think you have spent a lot of time, though you started with Airtel and things like that. Any specific reason why you wanted to take this route? Because a normal marketer typically goes through the traditional big company brands where they do marketing. But I find your profile to be completely different. So, is there a reason? So, is that something that excites you? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So it's mostly all of these are listed companies only, to be honest. I've probably spent 2, 3 years in a startup. Apart from that, most of these were, but they were not listed in India. So for example, Tencent was what, $500 billion in general. Airtel was close to, now I think roughly 10, 20 odd billion dollar companies. Back then it was a 10 to 15 billion dollar market cap companies, and Krafton roughly is around $3 billion, right? So it's the difference is lies in, I've always worked in digital first companies rather than consumer faced e-com based companies. So that's the difference. But it just allows you to learn different things at different scales. For example, what works $1 million campaign in a company like Tencent has very different meaning than $1 million campaign in a company like Airtel, because the scales are just like radically different, right? And also your objectives are different. In a lot of really large established brands like Airtel, all you want to do is to expand your TAM in on your fringes, and on your core audience you're trying to extract more ARPU, which is realizations in modern day terminology. Whereas for Tencent, it's about exploring new geographies and everything else. Like in Krafton, it is about exploring new games and getting new audiences in. So there's the little bit of a difference. When you look at the size of the companies, their objectives become very, very different. In my startup, it was all about market building, market awareness, and taking it from there, right? So it was very normal to have 250%, 300% growth even month on month, which is absolutely crazy. Whereas even for very large behemoths, even if you increase the top line by a single double digit, or high single digit, even that is at a consistent level, it compounds your top lines very well over a 5, 10 year period. Different companies gave me different exposures to the kind of things that you can pull off in marketing. It gives you a very wide range of things you can do, and it also taught me how marketing is done globally also, not just in India. Which Because if you restrict yourself to just India, it takes a long time to change your perspectives from traditional media, from TV, into what is happening, which lies at the cutting edge of where consumerism is right now, which is moving away from traditionals into digitals right now. So that is where as a professional, you go exactly where learning is the highest, right? So as learning progressed, I kept exploring and then finding things which helped bring value to both my teams as well as the companies. Yeah.
So when I was actually talking to you even before this podcast, one thing that impressed me a lot is the first point that you made during our discussion, which said the importance of knowing finance for a marketer is very, very important. And I rarely hear that from CMOs and head of marketing and anybody who is a marketing professional. So, why do you really think finance and the art of knowing finance is important for marketers? And can you elaborate a bit on that?
So what I think is that the world is shifting a little bit. I think for me it's more predictive than something which is happening right now as we speak in 2025. So the world is adapting a little bit. So what used to happen is that previously in organizations there would be the chief financial officer here and the CMO seated here, and the strategy folks who decide the course of the company and give recommendations to the CEO who sit on top would be equidistant from both, from the CFO as well as the CMO. Modern day companies, that equidistancy is no longer there, so they are more aligned towards the CFO. And when this happens, it happens mostly because as economies open up, we have gradually opened up since 1991. Now it's almost like 30 odd years, right? As consumerism grows, marketing becomes extremely intense. Breaking clutter becomes far more difficult. It is no longer easier to just roll out a campaign and think, hey, I've done enough and whatnot, right? So when these things happen, you have to be able to understand the perspective of your CFO as well as the CSO, who is the Chief Strategy Officer, or your CSO leads, to be able to convince your CEO in a convincing way, right? So that's why concepts like return on marketing dollars, understanding your brand's ROCE's return on capital employed, and the turnover, which is your how fast you are able to rotate your cash, is extremely important for you to understand what your marketing budgets are, right? The second point is what you do with those marketing budgets, the ratio which goes into content creation, the ratio which goes into distribution, the ratio of what should go into sales and whatnot. All of these, to have a very deeper understanding onto it, helps you bring those large projects to your CEOs. And since I worked only in almost listed companies, for me, the fiduciary duty is even higher, because it's not just CEOs, it's also in a way to the board and the shareholders in general, right? So if you are proposing a $10 million campaign, if you're $15 million campaign, the impact of it should be in line with what has been discussed in con calls, what has been discussed you as a strategic business unit, and what has been discussed as your company KPIs, right? You can no longer sit, just because you're a large consumer brand, sit on your laurels and think, hey, whatever I do, even if it gives me a little bit of a delta, the movement will not be much. I mean, look at some of the top FMCG brands, what has happened to them. Like the direct to consumer brands which has come up in the last few years have completely disrupted them, right? Completely disrupted them, right? If you look at, for example, like we can take many examples, as just one example. So folks are having to justify their brand spends even more severely, because the CEO is going to ask direct questions. Why don't I give promotional discounts in the channel, right? And you need to have very logical answers. You can't have logical answers if you don't have a background in finance. So that's where my IIM Calcutta education, which is known for its finance in general, really helped. It came in clutch, right? And I've also come from a background in forensic accounting in general, so I understand how cash flows sort of work. So more than the P&L statement, it's a cash flow statement that you look at to understand how these affect your margins, right? The second part is that I think uh, it's been a long time since India has seen a slowdown in consumerism, right? And marketing is very closely linked to consumerism, right? So
Correct.
and I think balance sheets of companies are really really good right now. It's far better than what happened in 2008 when I was in college and everything, right? Having said that, whenever a slowdown comes, the CEO is going to come out and say, ki, "Hey, let's slash down budgets and whatnot." If you have a very deep understanding of finance, you have a very brilliant ability to figure out what campaign suits what. So certain campaigns will be for, say, TAM expansion. TAM expansion for your viewers is when you're working on the fringes. You're trying to expand more and more people who will do trials of your product, right? On the other hand, I think there's certain campaigns you do to extract more revenue from your existing users. There's certain campaigns you do to launch your sub products or sub brands and whatnot, right? The balance of what budget goes into those is not something that you can no longer stare at your CSO or at your CFO and tell them, Ki, sir, tell me what the budgets are. You get a full budget and you need to be able to figure out which one gives you more ROE or ROI in general. ROE is a language that you should speak with your CFO to understand what sort of incremental benefits I can bring to my company's top line and bottom line, right? So this sort of an understanding is no longer outsourceable, I can say, to your strategy leads. You have to do it on your own, right? Otherwise, once upon a time, a leads marketing CMOs would only have the job of maintaining the brand, figuring out some ancillaries like PR and whatnot. But apart from that, they would not. These days, because there's agencies for everything and there is precise data prediction and analytics available to even the biggest of offline companies, you can make those analysis on your own. So if you have a little bit of a finance background, I think it really helps you understand how brands function in general. So these things really help me. And obviously, it goes without saying, because I've always worked in digital companies, the amount of data I had available at my fingertips helps me take decisions which I can analyze later to come back and do very easy postmortems. And you become better as someone who does marketing while keeping finances in mind, right? So this is a prudency which I predict will come into CMO circles, will come into CMO WhatsApp groups a lot in the next 4 5 years. It is just starting to enter into our into our lingo, into our discussions as of now, and has far-reaching implications than just budgeting. What budget goes into what campaign? It has far-reaching complications as to how you think about how effective your campaigns are going to be, and whatnot, right? So let's see how what the future holds. But you can no longer just silo brands from the financial impacts of what your campaigns are going to be.
Okay. So, can you explain a bit about this? You made a interesting statement on how do you convince a CEO or a CFO or a chief strategy officer on whether this campaign worked, what are the metrics. So, can you give me an example of how do you approach that finance first thinking, which is very very important. And if you can give me an example of how to how should a marketer start thinking around it, especially because it's an evolving area. That will be extremely useful to some of the folks who are listening to this conversation.
Yeah, so one of the biggest debates people usually have is that how much should you spend in distribution, which
Mm,
is whether you want to put this on TV, whether you want to put this on digital, and what should be the spends, and what ratio of that should be into creation, right? So this in itself needs you to understand what is the incremental impact of just going for deep distribution. For example, say basis projects, you know that there is a project on which you are expected to hit like 17 to 18% ROC. And
mm,
if your margins contract by around 2 to 3% in general, then it comes to around 15 to 14%, right? So what you need to do is to talk to your CEO and say, ki, hey, if you give me an additional 1% of the ROC, since you have that leeway in your margins in general, I can get you an additional reach of X million,
mm,
which gives you a dollar value of Y million, right? So in case it gets confusing, just to redo the math, say there's a product line you're launching which has an 18% to 16% ROC. They're always in ranges, right? You don't have exact assumptions. And the chief strategy officer and finance officers have given you a 2% leeway to use that amount of budget to expand your total addressable market by X million, which gives you Y million dollars in additional revenue, right? If you have the confidence basis your previous campaigns, basis your market understanding, basis your market research, and the risk taking ability of your business unit, you go and say, hey, if you give me 1 to 2% more, it will decrease your ROC by this. It will not decrease your ROC, it will decrease your margins by this. But because I can extract more volumes out of it, I think I will be able to deliver slightly better ROCs. So net it will not get affected. So what I did just now is that explain to my CEO that I understand that your ROCs, which are dependent on your rotations, how many
yeah.
times you can rotate the same cash, as well as your margins, how they interlink with each other. I understand that. So at a quarterly basis, I can tune my marketing campaigns basis that. Second, I do understand that if I crack open a new market, what sort of incremental revenues that I
Mm,
can bring in, even though they may not be margin accretive. Margin accretive is that when you go into a new category, they don't give you the same
yeah,
amount of margins. A
correct.
very easy example is Netflix Mobile. Netflix Mobile is at 149, 199. It's not the same margins for Netflix as you do on a 4K plan, which is like 849, right? Different margins, but you get that new consumer, you get the volumes in, right? So, very easy examples. But once you speak in this language to your CEO, now you have a conversation going, right?
Mm,
Previously, you would go and say, sir, can I get this India's biggest superstar into the game or into your product or into your brand? He or she will unlock this many rural markets for you, this many tier three, and this many SACs for you, and hence your brand will be known. That's not a language that they don't understand. They understand that language, but that's not a language that they can speak to their board or their
mm,
shareholders, right? This is a language that everyone speaks. So it's like everyone was speaking different languages, but once you accept that English is the most common language that everyone understands, so in that table, finance, I think ROCs, net margins, these are languages that everyone understands. Now imagine that you are as a marketeer know this language as well. You suddenly have a superpower, right? You can speak French and English. That's great, right? I mean, that's fun for everyone. So now you gain the confidence of not just your CEO but also your CSO and your CFOs, right? And it helps you bring rational decisions. The other thing
absolutely.
it does is that say this goes south, say if it goes north, then it's great. You'll get more budget next year as well. Say this goes south, you have your mitigation plans in place. So you know that you will mostly take a 2% hit in your margins, even if you ask for that budget, right? And then you will be able to explain to your leads that, hey, these are the reasons why the budget is limited this year. It's not because there's a slowdown, it's not because we don't want to focus on this project or whatever. If you understand it very well, then you'll be able to internalize that to your team very, very well. And the teams will also have these sort of expectations. And what it does is that over a period of time, you build this series of cases, and your company becomes so rich with these beautiful case studies through the years. Like ours is a very new company, but for if you've been working for a period or a decade or whatever it is, these cases help you fine tune the predictability of your revenues and the
Mm.
predictability of your marketing impact very, very well. Otherwise, you'll always have these discussions after an IPO. After an IPL, that a CEO comes out and says, "IPL में इतना पैसा खर्च किया क्या हुआ?" Like,
Mm.
you don't want to get into those conversations. You need more strong and legitimate conversations to gain the confidence of everyone in the room. So that's where I see the future of marketing being headed. There are ways you may like it or you may not like it, but adoption will be there. So you better adopt it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would think, Srinjoy, it's very, very important. Coming from a marketing and analytics background, for me, this has been always, an important aspect, and not often marketing talks this language. We talk about, I've been in meetings where, the CMO talks about, I've increased top of mind awareness. But the CEO will say, but my market share has not increased. Okay, so then if you give me a metric which says top of mind awareness has increased but the market share has not increased, which is a resultant of revenue coming into the company, the marketer does not get the respect of the board, right? So therefore, what is important from what you are telling me is that it's critical to look at return on marketing investment, look at margins, look at return on capital employed, look at return on marketing investments in terms of different distributions, how are your margins spread across your products. It's very, very important to talk that language because it has got implications on valuations, it's got implication on the scale what you are doing, and that I think is very critical for marketers to learn, right? That's really what you are saying.
Yeah, and you can see that people are noticing it, right? So I think even in the VC ecosystem, you can see that profitability suddenly is the buzzword compared to top line growth and all. So these things move in cycles. I think these are just market cycles. I think we are headed towards a market cycle where it is important to have in-depth understanding of finance also, in addition to marketing, because that's what gives you an edge. Otherwise, there's too many CMOs running around in the country with very little understanding of how finance works, and hence it finds it very difficult to reconcile with the top folks whenever you get into discussions with them.
Great. So you are somebody who is a big believer of content and context. Okay, and you've done some fantastic campaigns. I saw the awards that you have won, for some of the work that you have done. So can you talk about the importance of content and context, and how have you been able to build marketing innovations in a industry like yours where gaming, you may say that, yes, it doesn't have enough attention, but you seem to have built not a MAU but a DAO, right? Clearly that's something which you're passionate about. So can you give me some examples of how you have brought content and context to build customer engagement?
Yeah, so I've been very lucky to have worked with brands, all of which have really, really high DAU, like incredibly high DAU brands, right? And like in 8 9 digit DAUs in general. So that is very special, I think, in my opinion. So what it also allows you to do is to work with content. So what it means, content is essentially what? Content is just narratives, content is story, right? Now, when you do that, something different gets triggered inside your fans, inside your users, right? So instead of like whenever you start watching anything, be it an ad or a film or a content or whatever it is, your first instinct as a consumer these days, because we live in this overtly consumeristic world, मेरे को कोई कुछ बेच रहा है. Someone is selling me something, right? What content does is that it relaxes you. It says ki, no, no, hey guys, I'm not here to sell you something. For example, we've created mini content around our top game called Battlegrounds Mobile India, which talks about friendships, right? I'm not here to ask you to download the game after you've seen that film, right? I'm just asking you to just watch this film, And guess what? People really love it. People really enjoy it. What it subconsciously does is that it endears people to your brand, right? This is something that I will definitely credit that gaming and a lot of social first brands did it first in India, and then people came. Like we're very used to seeing placements of brands in films. It's very obvious someone
Yeah.
sipping on a beverage that they know about, someone talking about driving a car, that a brand that we know about. But what I think gaming brands and a lot of social first brands did, they turned this into entertainment. And entertainment is not something Indians can ignore. They
Mm,
love watching content. Like if you are on a bus ride, which is 1 hour, and you know there's a great episode of BGMI which has come up, you will watch that episode
mm,
because you were anyways going to watch something on YouTube, right? So that is extremely important, I think. The second part is context. So it's not really, it's an open secret right now that most folks in India are spending time, a large amount of time on Instagram and YouTube. Previously, just like 2 3 years back, I would have said like, hey, Gen Z is spending a lot of time on Instagram and YouTube. Nowadays it's true even for my dad. By the way, my dad, whenever he's not watching OTT, he's doing something on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. But that's anecdotal evidence. We have actual evidence also where we see that majority in this country, the highest MAU products in this country are all social media led, right?
mm,
So I can't get a guy or a girl to play my game all the time, right? So there's a limit to the amount of video games that you can play in a day. What do
mm,
you do when you are out of it and you still want some entertainment, right? Apart from OTTs, which is different, you go to social media, right? And guess what? When you go to YouTube and Instagram, I'm there. And you can't be there again, ask him to download the game. He's just played a game and you anyway so big, kitna hi you will get people to download and all of those things, right? So you say, hey, there's this nice feature that we made around, there's this nice feature film that we made, this is nice web series that we made, this is nice funny content we've made. So these are known as Instagram takeovers or YouTube takeovers, as buzzwords in general. But at the heart of it is that your storytelling is so beautiful that people watch your content, which is why
mm,
the metrics that we have, that we follow here in Krafton currently in my current company, are very different from metrics that other marketers follow. For example, most marketers look at impressions,
mm.
reach, etc. We look at weird things like average view duration. This kind
Yeah.
of metrics that we're looking at are AVDs, like average view durations. Then we look at number of shares and things like that. These are all geared towards your innate instinct, whether you are enjoying a content or not, right?
Mm,
So for us, views and impressions and reach are output metrics, which come if you are really good at AVD and shares and all that, right? This corroborates with what YouTube is also doing and Instagram also is doing. Like by the way, if you put something on YouTube which is very high AVD and high shares, it will get high amount of views because that's where YouTube gets its information that it's getting viral. So again, going back to my statistics and analytical days, etc., like that, where we crack down some of all of these things down to the T, like back 3 years back in general, and figure out this is going to be a strategy at least till 2026, 2027 for the next 4 5 years. So we figured out that if you don't have great content, then people at some point in time will leave your brand and then go towards a brand which is the more new and hip thing to do, especially if you're a gaming or an entertainment brand. Maybe it is not so relevant for other brands, but for us it definitely is. Secondly, if it is a game or a brand which has a lot of stories to be told, then tell those stories, no? And thirdly, if you are able to figure out that these are metrics which are helping you grow the brand, for example, AVDs and shares that I talked about, instead of impressions, reach, and views, which are output metrics, then you should focus on that, right? So these are some also in a way. I'm also telling you what my predictions are gonna be in the future, which are some things that we'll address later on. But I think that give it 4 5 years, I think everyone will start talking about shareability of content. How many shares have you gotten rather than views, because people have figured out that you can just get views through money, like you can just promote any music video and it gets you views in general. But are people really engaging with that video that you have put out? Are people really watching it for the entire 2 3 minutes or 6 7 minutes that you put it out for? Or people are just watching it for 2 seconds and you paid that 1 cent or 10 cent or whatever it is, and then people skip on? So that people are catching on to slowly but steadily, but that's where the future sort of lies.
Great. So when because you have worked in categories which are digital first or I would say social first. Say for example, Krafton is a mobile gaming company. Some of what you just said is also very relevant for traditional brands, right? Say I may be a FMCG brand and I still believe that content still plays a role. And even if you talk about ADV and sharing, again, it's very very important if you build content in a storytelling manner rather than the traditional advertising model. Would you agree that that's the route that marketing is going to take over the next few years? Even if I'm a traditional, I would call it a phygital brand.
Yeah. Just a small correction. Krafton is not just a mobile gaming company. We make video games for PC as well as for console. So we're not just mobile. We're mobile, PC plus console. So we are a full-fledged marketing company, video gaming company. So yeah, I think it would be relevant, but I wouldn't speak on their behalf. But given the kind of slowdown that I've seen in FMCG brands, the old traditionals, how they're struggling with digital first brands on all fronts, and given how severe competition is, and given how much value for money that customers and consumers are looking for, I think it's only a matter of time. Like if you are, say, if you're say for a delivery service, there is 14 or 15 or delivery companies which is going to exist, I think, in about 5-10 years from now. So your narratives will define your loyalty, your retention in general, right? You already see in cabs, for example, cab aggregators, as soon as 2-3 aggregators do very well, there's 4-5 who turn up in general. Some of them die out, some of them get acquired and whatnot, right? So I think it's going to be important for you to be very very good at content and be very very relevant with it, so that you can build those retentions, and those retentions will come from loyalty. Loyalties only come in if your emotions are triggered. If your cognitive biases and emotions are not triggered, you will not feel that loyalty towards a brand, right? So for example, if you take classic international examples of Nike versus Adidas in general, there's a reason why a Nike fan is a Nike fan, and a Nike
Exactly.
fan never touches Adidas. I've seen it, and very very rarely in general, because there will be debates on this otherwise. A Coke versus Pepsi. If given the opportunity, that person will always go for a Coke if he or she wants it, right? Why are these? Because they have triggered you at an emotional level at some point in time, and these things can only happen, in my view, if you have content to suggest and push those narratives. If you just keep making ad films, at some point in time people will be like, ha, theek hai, I had quenched my thirst, but that's not why I bought Coke for, just to quench my thirst. There's a
Mm.
certain feeling I get when I do this. When you fly your favorite airline, there's a reason why you fly your favorite airline on your favorite route in general, right? Having said that, there are certain categories which are just commodities. Like, to be honest, this mineral water, I'm not sure how many people have specific preference of a mineral water unless they have it for health reasons or whatever it is. So I'm not sure about it. But certain super commodity brands in general, I don't know. But certain objects which are high involvement, you're passionate about, for example, phones, airlines, and everything. Like I was talking about delivery services, even hotels, etc. Like that. There are ways that you build retention, but through cards and whatnot. But there are ways to build retention through marketing also, which happens through narratives. So maybe it's relevant, but I wouldn't speak on their behalf. I found it to be very very relevant in digital, where it's easy to switch. The switching cost is near zero, right? You switch very very rapidly. It's not like your bank that you hardly change your bank, right? But people switch their wallets at your whim. Even like, if I have to take a financial comparison between banks and wallets, you don't change your primary bank, but you change your wallet very rapidly, right?
Yeah.
People have changed their social media. I remember, like, you don't change your SIM card. Like, I have been an Airtel user all my life from the start, but I have not changed my SIM card as my primary number. Social media have changed. Like, I started off with Orkut. I used to do Facebook. Then I was in Instagram for some time. I've seen Discord and Reddit growing the fastest in the last 1 year in India. So you never know, right? So how you need to feel something about a brand to stick to it over a long period of time. Apart from the utility which the product team is taking care of, what is your value to this is the narratives that you can build towards your brand, right? So that's why I said it, and let's see how what the future holds. To be
Great.
honest.
So one point I want to pick up, Srinjoy, is you talked about the content bit, and you said not everything is about messaging. You have to build entertainment in your marketing, right? And can you give me an example of a campaign that you ran where you moved away from the traditional as a gaming company, as a messaging to entertainment, and therefore it helped you build an audience. Can you give me an example of what you saw as a powerful example of what you did?
Hmm. So I'll come start from the beginning and give you some examples from existing industries and also my example. So if messaging was that important, I think every kid here would know what messaging is. Airbnb's Airbnb ka slogan kya? I know you know Nike's slogan because it's been drilled down for 50 years, but you don't know what Airbnb's is. Belong anywhere, right? So a lot of people don't know what is Uber's messaging also, which is what's your destination. A lot of campaigns that they did, right? So I discovered this around 4 or 5 years back. But for a lot of digital brands, take India's largest e-com player, take India's largest food delivery service, take India's largest modern digital brands, they don't know what is their primary slogan or what their messaging is. Certain things maybe they associate it with certain. There's certain brands you associate with trust. Like say if you say the HDFC Bank stands for trust, SBI stands for banker to every Indian, those things you know. But outside of Paytm, which popularized Paytm Karo, very very standout example. I have not seen many examples of people having done that. So when that is the case, what I do is that I go user first, I go fan first, I go customer first, right? So you speak to your customers and you figure out what they want and tune your messaging to what they want at that stage of their use of the product, right? So we launched BGMI
Hmm.
under a slogan called India Ki Heartbeat, right? Which is very beautiful. So first, it's a very large statement because you're saying India ki heartbeat, right? Not India ki heart throb, which may be a superstar or whatever it is, right? So it might feel a little bit ki हाँ ये थोड़ा ज़्यादा नहीं बोल दिया or whatever it is. But you know what gave us the confidence? Because this slogan did not come from us. It did not come from our agency. It came from our YouTube comments. It came from our fans because
Hmm.
they felt that this game really stands for what makes their heart goes wow, right? And that is a very beautiful insight that we picked on, right? And we ran this campaign. When we ran this campaign to accentuate this, there could be so many emotional films that we have made ads, 30 seconders, 15 seconders and whatnot, right? It's very easy to do that, but we didn't do that. We launched this game with a documentary,
Hmm.
actually. The documentary is a very archaic way of putting it, but it's still there, India Ki Heartbeat. So it's a three series set of six stories, which is spoken about in about
I
three
saw that.
episodes.
I saw that. I
Yeah,
saw that. Yeah.
they are telling you why they think this game is India Ki Heartbeat. They're literally telling you this. And these are what? Like 8 minute, 20 minute or odd videos. People are watching it. You see the amount of views. More
Hmm.
important, see the amount of comments. Because
Hmm.
views, like I said earlier, you should
You
stick
can
to
buy
one
it.
thing.
Yeah.
You can get views, you can buy views. Look at the comments. Look at the amount of shares that people have done. Same episodes that are on Instagram. Also, you can check them out. So that was incredible. When you make a campaign, the logic, basis, and slogans of that campaign, if it comes from your users, then you're pretty much guaranteed a success because you're making it for them jisko pasand hai, right? Like what if your mom knows what you really like and your mom is going to make your favorite dish when you come home for summers, right? So chances are very very high. Second thing is, you know exactly how people are going to react. So for example, will people react with empathy? Will people react with excitement? Will people react with intrigue? You know the emotional triggers also. To every marketer who's listening to this, they know that that is the one thing that people search for. Every marketer's dream is that if I know the emotion that this will trigger, or no emotion at all. So first thing takes care of कि no emotion wala scene nahi hoga. So you will definitely have an emotion triggered. Second, you also know what emotions will be triggered. So if you know what emotions can be triggered, then you can build engagement sub campaigns out of it. Like so, say if you know that an emotion of nostalgia will be triggered, you can put in Easter eggs of nostalgia in it and ask them, what do you remember from your playing days, what do you remember from this, etc. You can put up these beautiful things and accentuate those, right? So we did all of those with India Ki Heartbeat. We put emotional triggers in it, we put in beautiful pieces of nostalgia in it, and we brought out stories from all parts of this country that when people saw those stories, they realized, oh, this is me. And that is incredible. There's nothing more beautiful in this world than you as a Nike fan, seeing someone wear Nike shoes and put in a dunk on a basketball in general, because you resonate to that superstar that the Nike promotes in general, right? So that is extremely beautiful because people understand that this is exactly who I was and this is exactly who I want to be. And this is why I love this brand so much. And the results were tremendous. We recorded our highest ever views on a single day. There were many records being broken. We trended on YouTube effortlessly without a dollar spent. And I don't know of many such instances, at least in India, where a brand launched with a documentary. But there it is. That's one for the history books. Also, we now have a brand which launched with this documentary. So we do take content so seriously that we are ready to launch our games also with content, right? In a way, documentary is content. It's not a 30-second of film,
Absolutely,
right?
you're primarily a content company. Game is just one, aspect of how you present that, right? So
No, we are
definitely.
not primarily a content company for sure.
No, but still, I'm saying, even if you're gaming, I'm just saying there's a lot of emotion involved in gaming, right? So content creates that emotion. So therefore, to that extent, I think you use that effectively, right? That's important.
Yes. It allows you to maximize your storytelling the way you want it to
The
be.
way you want it. I think that's the analogy that I was talking about. I think
Uh,
that's
and
important.
and that will be very interesting in the future as well. I don't really rule out seeing the top food delivery apps talking about how beautifully his food is crafted or stories around whatever it is in the future in general. I already see a lot of these things. People are really, the top digital companies are already making a lot of content who have got nothing to do with entertainment. So I can see the future going in that direction, to be honest. For example, we had these features that we had to discuss before a launch of a feature. We call these updates in BGMI, and it sounds like a very boring name. We thought so too. So to release these updates, we started podcasts,
Hmm.
right, between the top players, esports players. But the thing is, this happened 2-3 years back, right? This podcasts have become in vogue, have come in vogue now. We did
Hmm.
it in 2022. And by the time that they have come in vogue now, everybody and their kid is doing a podcast right now. We are not doing that anymore. We are
Hmm.
doing something else right now. We were collaborating. We believe the future is collabing with internet celebrities, and these are not celebrities that we know about. Like, for example, we collab with Purav Jha, Carrie Minati, and whatnot. So we move on very fast because we have to be at the cutting edge of trends. Because gamers, like I said, they have too many things at their disposal, too many choices to move on to. So they really need to understand that we understand their psyche, we understand their way of thinking. So that is where we are.
Great. So, can you share with me? You are somebody who's very close to understanding the insights about Gen Zs, right? And what have been your, learnings that you can share with the audience on how do you see the Gen Zs as as an insight? What are the things that you are seeing and which marketers should take note of?
It's anyways very evident right now that Gen Zs are the most difficult TG to market to. Mostly because, first of all, I think Gen Zs are extremely self-aware. Even though we might not give them that credit, or someone might not, but they're extremely self-aware. Their ability to research is incredible. Now with ChatGPT, they can do research even better than anything that you can think of, and all the things that our generation sort of took for granted. Gen Zs never take them for granted, and they evaluated all options and all choices that they have, right? Which makes them the most difficult to market to. But there are 2-3 things that if you can hit well, no, then you get Gen Zs to collaborate with you, to work with you, to comment on your videos, to talk to you. And when you get that, I think that is very karmic in nature, because when Gen Zs come, they don't come in singles and duos and whatnot. They come in hordes, right? So, which is why a mega brand like Battlegrounds Mobile India emerges, right? So, I could see the transition, like from subculture all the way to pop culture. When it happens, it comes in hordes, right? Same with the growth of Snapchat in India. If you look at it, right, so many of these brands became really big, which a lot of people who are not Gen Z don't understand. So the key to it is first speak their language.
Hmm.
I think language is a massive barrier. Like it's almost like English and French. To be honest, they do not speak the same language at all. To crack that language, there are many ways, but you can do it if you follow it. You can track and whatever it is. Second is that you have to do many campaigns in a year. You cannot think that I will do 2 campaigns in a year and Gen Zs will give me credit for it and remember it and all of those things. Because you're thinking from your perspective. This campaign was so special. I will continue this all the way till July. Now we are sitting in April. No, they don't think like that. They will move on. Because Gen Zs are getting pampered like hell, like from all directions and on all possible medium, right? And they have their own crowds and everything, right? The things which stay common from even our olden days of marketing to now is that the cognitive biases still remain the same that apply to Gen Zs that used to apply. So you have to use those cognitive biases cleverly, like fear of missing out, spotlight effect, and then bunch of these, where those still trigger the same emotions that they would trigger, right? But the things that used to take for granted back then, like loyalty, for example, you can still get loyalty, but to keep up that loyalty, you have to keep delivering as a brand. So, what is it that you value as a brand, and do those values sync with the same values that Gen Z has? Not your company values, I'm talking about. Your brand values should sync with what Gen Z's value systems are, right? So, if those match, then you get sort of really long loyalty, lifelong loyalty, though I'm not sure, lifelong retention, but you get really high retention, high those D30, D60 or retention products that you have, you get those, right? So I think these are some basic starting points, but every brand will have its own challenge. You have your success factors, you have your failure points in general. Uh, the way to look at it is always be surprising. Do not wait it out. Like if you put out three pieces of content which are similar to each other, Gen Zs will start losing interest in your channel faster than you can think, right? So try and put out a content around animation. Let's put out the next content with a internet celebrity that they never expect. So these are things which really move Gen Z. So like olden days we had this always be closing ABC in sales, right? So that's why I say, so with modern day marketing, it's ABS, always be surprising. Once you lose the surprise factor, if Gen Zs have figured out, no, ये chocolate brand कि हाँ next ad इसी chocolate मिठास के ऊपर बात करेगा, they are not going to watch your ads. As soon as they find that skip button, like, dude, skip this ad. Again, they'll talk about celebration, dude. Like Diwali, I know this chocolate brand and Diwali, they do the same ads 20 years in a row. So what special will you bring this time, right? So again, so these are things that Gen Zs are very clever about. I don't know about other teachers in general, but I have generally found out that Gen Zs are the most difficult TG to market to. But some people say till now, maybe something even more difficult is going to come up as you go to Gen Y and whatever it is, Gen X and whatever is
Gen
uh,
Alpha. It's called Gen
Gen Alpha.
Alpha
Yeah,
now.
Gen Alpha comes about, right? So then you'll run into other issues in general, right? Because
Yeah.
when I speak to my mentors who are, they say that you guys were the most difficult to market to, dude. Like they're
Mm,
from a different generation, right? So
mm.
so they say ki this happens with every generation of marketeers. You always script that the next one is the most difficult to market to in general. But yeah, and I mean that's the reality of developing economy like ours, where consumerism is growing. Like Gen Zs have recently, the difference between when I started my career and now is that Gen Zs have now found their wallets.
Mm.
Previously, they were dependent on their mom and dad's wallets. Now they have their own wallets. So they vote with their wallets, right? So never let a bad customer experience go, or speak to them directly. Like they have a lot of power, purchasing power right now. And if they belong to California, India, which is the top 60 to 100 million odd users of India in
Mm.
general, they have a ton of powers. You better listen to them, right? So these are some beautiful challenges coming out. Now we are all adapting, but I gave like two, three basic understanding pointers where you can start with to work around some of these problems. Yeah.
How important is market research for a brand like yours? Do you, for a traditional brand, they invest so much in market research, right? But for somebody like you who heads marketing for a gaming company like yours, how important is market research?
Yeah, market research is everything, but the way we do market research is completely different though.
That's
So we
exactly
do,
what I wanted you to talk about.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we do not talk to agencies and get those agencies to scout potential candidates, put them in a closed room, feed them chai and biscuits, go to the other side of the glass wall, listen to them talking, etc. We don't do that. Like
Okay.
unfortunately, it creates, it doesn't create fake results, but probably you won't get those deeper insights, etc.
It's
Right?
not authentic. It's not
Yeah.
authentic.
So it's not possible for everyone, but for us, the easiest way is to just play a game with others, and you can tune into your headphones and listen to what they are saying, right? Secondly, we are really blessed to have a community of players who are as involved as us in making our products better. So they leave their feedback on our YouTube comments. Like anyone who's listening in, go to Battlegrounds Mobile India Instagram and YouTube channels. You'll see that they talk about their life problems, their game problems, the things that they love about their life, the things that they love about their game, and also feedback on my content. For example,
Mm.
if I posted a great ad, they will come and write it. Like, when do you see people write that this is a great ad? Nobody writes that like explicitly, right? People hardly comment, to be honest, right?
Correct.
Thousands and thousands of comments. Like at a monthly basis, we process like close to 2-3 lakh comments in general. That's a lot of data you have at your disposal to talk to, right? Then we have so many games played, like an incredibly large, like close to a billion odd games played per month in general. So you can listen to a lot of data that can come out of it. The thirdly is that there's no estimation which needs to be needed because we are a digital brand, so we get accurate data. So there's no 47 to 50 games played. There's literally 47 games played.
Mm.
There's no average time spent of roughly 90 minutes. This is like average time spent of 87 minutes, right? So because we get very precise data, we know exactly how to talk to people, how to get things done and get things moving in general. So that works out, I think, beautifully, right? So market research is super duper important, but the way we do market research, at least the liberties that I get to do market research in a digital first brand are very different. And I will honestly say that I'm super privileged to have these options with us, because to me, it just is a cheat code, right? If there are 10 marketeers in the room, I just literally have a head start of 100 meters in a 1 kilometer race. So it's just if you have if you have a very easy cheat code to exploit, you should really talk to your users much in general. All I have to do is to instill a heavy culture of listening to your users, not कि मुझे मजा नहीं आया, users को fans को मजा आया, then they should do it right. And the proof is there in the pudding. Like almost 80 to 90% of our videos go viral, like with tremendous amount of participation, both in shares as well as average view durations, which is very admirable for a brand in general. For an influencer, you can still get high AVDs, but for a brand to get these kind of AVDs and shares is incredible. And views and impressions, if anyone wants to like check, that's very high views and impressions, that's always there. But that's something, like if you have market research abilities the way we do, please invest a lot of resources. When I say resources, I mean mostly time in it.
Mm.
The results will follow.
Okay. And you are a big believer of virality, right? Because that's something that's close to your heart. I've seen some interview of yours where I think for you it's like a first love. And the way you've built consumer engagement for some of the brands is really starts with the promise of virality. So, why do you think virality is important, and why should you think marketers need to have a focus on virality?
Yeah, so firstly, it's mostly because of the industry that I work in. So in my industry, in gaming and in entertainment, if you are, is it's there's a saying, go viral or go home. So if you are not viral, you're pretty much gonna be dead in a few moments. Like, we all grew up playing Counter Strike and Dota, right, through our college days, 2005 and 8. Do you think a lot of people are playing Counter Strike and Dota right now? No, right? But think about it. In my college, I don't know a single guy who did not play Counter Strike and Dota. Everybody used to love playing those games, right? They're no longer that big in India that they could have been in general, right? So virality is the art of keeping something relevant and at the top of your mind's awareness for a long period of time, right? And I'm not talking about the misunderstood definition of virality, which is like I need a spike in general. So
Correct.
so IPL's first year IPL was rapidly viral, but IPL managed to keep its popularity throughout the years through amazing techniques and whatever it is. So virality is not just that. Virality is that how can you break something down to an extent that you understand the causes for the virality, and those are replicable. Sometimes they are not replicable. You do the same things twice and thrice, if people are not going to listen to you, right? So you can replicate those over a long period of time, and those can translate into business results, right? So that's something very beautiful we've managed to do in Krafton. And in gaming, if you can do this literally translates to an enormous amount of revenue and user base, right? The reason I think it's important is that if you use science, no, you can break down virality to certain factors. Like till today, I still find people talking about virality in terms of number of views and impressions. कि hey, this video went viral, इसके पास 50 million views hai in general, right? Views is mostly an output metric, like I said, right? Check out the number of shares. If someone gets like 50,000 to 1 lakh shares on Instagram, it catches my attention. because I know it's going to go to the trending page, right?
Mm.
So virality has a lot of science behind it, like I discussed. So there is AVD, there is total time spent. Total time spent is different from average view durations, right? Number of shares, number of comments, right? Then there's something called randomness in comments. So if everybody is commenting, say somebody is promising free iPhones, then and type free iPhone in comment section, everybody is typing free iPhone, free iPhone, free iPhone. So the algorithm rejects it, even it might have 10,000 comments, right? So there's something called randomness, or the complete the total change in comments that you see. So how rich your comment section is, how granular your comment section is, all of this contribute to a huge amount of views. So we broke all of this down to a science because we had that data with us, because we have been a viral brand for 5 years, right? This again gives us a little bit of an edge, right? But I think your question was that if you're starting out now, how do you start?
Correct.
So
So
that,
since you've broken down the signs of virality, if you were to tell me there is a mental model or a framework of virality, what are the 4 or 5 things that a marketer should look at?
yeah, very simple. So first is that make your content shareable. Right. And with every ad agencies, the first page and the first deck, they will write a shareable content, etc. But nobody really does it, right? Everybody watches a content, sorry, creates a content to make it interesting, but people don't make content to make it shareable. There's a difference, by the way. So think about Instagram. So all of you viewers, just close your eyes and think about Instagram for a second. What is the most deepest action you can take, or you have taken in Instagram when you have shared it with a friend? That
Hmm.
button, right? That beautiful. So that button is extremely valuable. It is the most valuable button that you can think of. And guess what? That's something that you and Instagram both agree on. Instagram also thinks that's my most valuable button. You also think it's my most valuable button, because when you share with something, it's something deeply personal, not the like button, right? So I think track your shares is something that I will do. Make your content shareable. Second is that please start your content in an interesting way. The first 5 seconds are very important. In your first 5 seconds, if some a huge dopamine hit is not coming, a huge important thing is not happening, etc., people will skip your videos. At least in the first 30 seconds, if you're not able to grab your users' attention, they are not going to continue doing or watching that, right? So these are two things that you can easily do. The third and fourth metrics are things which are very difficult to achieve, but these are called hacking your AVDs. So when I say hacking your AVDs, it's very difficult as a creator to do that, by the way. Say you have around 30 minutes of content. You cut out and you reject things continuously to make a 6 minute video, so that you value the user's time as much as you value yours.
Hmm.
Like I have known teams where they have put in their videos where the marketing team has not seen the entire video because the video was 30 minutes long. So dala kyun bhai?
Hmm.
You should put like a 6 minute video and say ki for the long version click here, whatever it is. Then you get to know, right? The third is being honest with your objectives. I think a lot of people are not honest with their metrics in general, like because it's become easy. Because YouTube and Instagram gives you the route to sort of increase your views by paying money, you sort of don't stay honest to it. And on TV, you never really know what the metrics are. Who is watching your ad on mute? You don't know. I have known in recent times, I've like this is anecdotal a little bit. I've gone around to many houses, people are watching IPL on mute, right, and doing their own things like laptop पे काम कर रहे, TV mute पे IPL चल रहा है, etc. So you don't know what impact you're doing, what driving, etc. So again, you can never really trust all the data that you get from TV in general, right? So you should only look at data which you can trust. So if your starting point, make sure your content is interesting, make sure the idea is interesting, make sure insight comes from an user, comes from your users who think about it deeply, right? So for example, if you're a food brand and you are selling products which are unhealthy, and you know your users technically do not like unhealthy products, you will never make it big. Even in advertising, at least you can make it big by giving discounts and free stuff and whatever it is, but in advertising you'll never make it big if that is your pulpit in general. The reverse is also true. If you're making a food brand and you know people love eating you because it's just so goddamn tasty, if you start bringing in healthy stuff, they're not going to listen to you, right? They'll be like, मैं तो खाता ही था इसके लिए मजे के लिए, right? So you need to nail your insight absolutely spot on, and understand them at a very deeper level, etc. Right? So that's why I say, like, if you're FMCG, the best market research you can do is to go. We used to say that in our day, दुकान पे जाके खड़े हो जा. So
Hmm.
you go stand by the dukan and observe your users. What do they do? What do they say, etc. Like that. Someone comes in and say, I want that cake. And say, you don't take this cake, take the other cake, etc. he or she says, no, I want this cake because of this, etc., because mummy boli hai, because isme palm oil zyada hai, because ye hai, whatever it is people say. But you get to get real insights which you won't get on the other side of the mirror in your AC room, that a market research agency is conducting for you, right? So in case of beautiful ways you can do, like if you're running an airline company, do you know the kind of stories you can gather by just standing at the check-in counter? Like
Yeah.
if you're a brand manager for an airline, just go stand outside a check-in counter. Insane stories you'll get, right? Amazing stories. If you're a brand manager of an automobile company, go to your showrooms. People are expressive, etc. Like that. If you find it difficult to gather the easy hack that I have, the comment section of my video, if you don't have access to that, you can always do that, right? So with any brand, like if you're a food delivery, you can always tag along with a delivery rider and go visit, say it's a sir survey नहीं करना है, but आपको क्या चीज अच्छा लगा इसके बारे में, that we came and gave you the delivery in fast, or we reimburse you when something goes wrong, or whatever it is. Just tag along and meet like 5-10 customers in general. These are again easy things to really do, right? So what I said was a cheat code earlier in this podcast may not sound like a cheat code just because I give you 5 examples in 5 completely different industries where you can talk to real customers in a real way. So you get these things done, you can become viral if you want to. Like if you're an aspiring brand trying to break it into the food industry or any other industry, you can always make it big, to be honest.
Shinjay, one of the questions that I have for you is what do you see is the future of agencies, given that marketing is changing so much with so much of proliferation of media. So, how do you see an agency to be a partner for a brand in the future, and what do they need to do to be a real partner?
Yeah, I think so. Capabilities have not changed much for ad agencies, at least, right? So what I mean is that ad agencies were making ad films 10 years, 20 years back. They're still making 30 second and 60 second ads right now, right? There are certain agencies which are doing some good stuff right now, but very soon agencies might get briefs as to, can you create a full episode for us? Can you create a thoughtful video for Diwali for us? The video on the 30 second? No, a full on episode about our users who are celebrating Diwali in their hometown, drinking their favorite beverage or whatever it is, right? These kind of agencies might get briefs. Can you create animated content for us? So these are capabilities that agencies, because for 20 years change takes time. Now 20 years they've been sitting and they've built huge executive leaderships, building 30 second of films, 30 second of films for 20 years in general. They might struggle a little bit, but there are certain agencies who are extremely agile, have their sub agencies who can build animated content, long form content, and whatnot, and are good at it. So that's one agency, I think, change which is going to come out, where very weird briefs will come your way, right? The second thing, I think a lot of these companies will come to agencies asking for engagement campaigns. Engagement campaigns are not make a film and release it sort of a campaign. Engagement is that there's got to be something in it in which the user interacts with my product. Not the easiest way that you do it कि QR code डाल दिया scan करके मैं जीतूंगा कि नहीं, या bike or whatever it is that people do. Maybe something more than that. You watch this ad, if you can find this video on YouTube, you get something else. You can do this with our product. You go to this shop, you find this way, you go to this retailer, or like if you have a showroom in a particular mall, you go this, you do that. So a lot of these interactive ways will come about, which will allow agencies to create a deeper connect with users. But usually you shy away from doing that because you think the user will not enjoy it, कि इतना दूर कौन जाएगा, etc. Then you have access to creating digital properties. You can create a website full of Easter eggs and say इस website में जाके ये find करो, you get a full free 1 year worth of Coke or whatever it is you get, or whatever it is, right? So beautiful, these possibilities are coming up, which I think agencies will have to put into the campaigns which are engagement led in general, right? The final thing, I think that users are really passionate about what brands they use, and they can get easily dispassionate about a brand if a sub brand comes in. Essentially, I'm trying to explain competitive intensity in a different way, but this difference is important. Hear me out. So I have seen a huge amount of disruptions since COVID in existing industries than I've ever seen in my last whatever 20 odd years. In these 3-4 years, the disruptions that I've seen, the existing behemoths, the kind of market shares that they have lost, be it airline, be it entertainment industry. Look at the consolidation which is happening in TV as well as in OTT. Be it FMCG, be it gaming, for example, the way gaming has been disrupted, be it films. be it automotive. So the kind of disruptions which are coming your way are so severe that agencies will have to adapt to find way more clutter breaking stories if they have to stick to ads in general. So no longer will the conventional ads of pehle ye tha abhi hua or normalized stories that you do, etc. As a result, I have seen the quality of ads has also increased. I think I have it's been some time since I saw a very plain vanilla ad of a product being rolled out. Every ad nowadays has some funny twist to it or trying something different in general. So that I find is very cool and moving in the right direction. But I think agencies will have a lot of catching up to do. Apart from these are things that your viewers and listeners already know, which is reliance on analytics. You need to have very hard coded understanding of analytics, use of artificial intelligence to give very strong pitches where you end up try it like you reach the pitch with your website ready, because it takes me what literally 5 minutes to create a website nowadays on Claude, right? So if your pitch preparation takes an hour, can you not dedicate 5 minutes to do that, right? So pitches will become far more advanced, right? Penetration into new industries will become much easier because AI allows you to learn everything about an industry minus the experience, everything that you can factually learn about an industry in literally as little as it gets. So you can make incredible pitches in general, right? And so that's where I think it's going to be a very revolutionizing sort of a period for agencies where larger agencies will disintegrate. There's going to be coagulation in general. We already see this reflecting in awards. If you look at the top three awards in India, the ad awards in India, newer agencies are winning more awards than before. And then somebody announces the winner, and then like, ye kaun hai, etc. And then they Google it, etc. It's already being very evident in general, but it will be a very exciting space for me as a marketer to track over the next couple of years at least.
And how do you see the marketing department of the future? Because you are in a you're in a cutting edge industry, right? So the marketing department that you see today, and what you saw in the past, and what you're going to see in the future, how do you expect marketers to therefore reskill themselves and prepare for the marketing department of the future?
Yeah, so I think definitely marketing folks need to understand the creative process better. When I say not just creating a great narrative or a plot line for your ad, but they need to understand how film editing works, first of all, how a shoot works, what happens in a shoot, and what happens on an edit table. Usually, brand managers I know from before would come down for the shoot and leave, take a flight back on once the shoot is over. I think more and more brand managers will get involved on the editing table with the director, not just there to sit and tell him ki sir mera bottle अच्छे से दिख रहा है ना, not that, but more than that, like how's the narrative coming along, well, are you taking the right scenes and cuts and whatnot. So that's something which is happening. Secondly, because they have to be creators, they need to learn the basics of filmmaking and film editing and basics of Photoshop. Everyone in the team should ideally know the basics of Photoshop so that they can create basic edits and everything on the fly in general. Apart from that, and this again sounds like a laundry list and sounds like a rather long and arduous list, but it's already happening. So I have folks in my team who know all of these things, right? So they need to understand analytics very well. So for example, learning Tableau is almost a precondition here at my team, which is a very highly developed statistical software in general. But with AI, you can just learn it very fast these days. It's not very difficult, right? You need to be able to work with large volumes of data on Excel to find actionable insights, etc. Because those old ways where you did some work, you're waiting for the analytics team to give you a report. We used to call those MIS reports once upon a time. MIS report aayega, pata chalega kaisa result. Nobody wants to do that anymore. Everybody is like, okay, fine, you have access to that data. Just pull the data, run your pivots, run your VLOOKUPs, find out the results, present the results, and tell me the mitigation. Why does it take 4 or 5 days to do that? So, in at least in digital first companies, this is a norm where you have to be very good at the creative side and understand everything from the pre-shoot, the pre-production to the shoot to the edit table, so that you know what music goes with whatever it is and everything else that I talked about. And you have to be very good on the analytics side, which helps you plan the next campaign also very well, right? So this is where the marketing teams wise might not be different, but the skill sets that a brand manager would need to have in the future are very different. And Consequently, this next set of CMOs will come out from these senior brand managers will also be extremely multi-talented. I may not say multi-talented, but at least have all the skills and deeply talented in marketing, right? So you need to have just the basic skills of how to run an MIS, how to run a query, SQL query to get data out. You need to have the skill sets to understand how editing goes, what are the top music that goes on with what content and whatnot. And you need to understand your core of marketing, which is about what is viral, what is not, how to fit your brand ambassadors to whatever it is, and all of those things. So the skill sets will be very, very different in the future marketing teams, the way I see it. And I think it's good for everyone, to be honest, because the more ancillary skill sets you have, no, better conversations you'll be able to have with everyone. And no longer will people look at you and team, I will give this marketing as a black box, I'll get this as an output, and I'll again throw in. That won't happen. So already a beautiful set of these changes have been seen in almost at least the top 10, 20 startups of this city here. And many more changes are coming, but this is something which is definitely happening. This is not even a prediction. So because I see modern day marketing teams being so agile with both the creative sides as well as the analytic sides, etc., this is happening, and it's real.
So I'm kind of wrapping up our conversation with a quick rapid fire. So the first question I want to ask you, Srinjoy, is what does success mean to you?
Seeing my consumers happy.
Beautiful. Uh, what is one piece of advice that you got which you value even today as you come to work?
Experiments. Learn experiment irrespective of your age. You experiment when you're 18, you experiment when you are 70. Keep experimenting.
Nice, beautiful. What's one piece of advice you would give to a 18-year-old in college?
If you do what you love, then you love what you do. So figure out what you love doing exactly. Just because there's a marketing podcast and you're listening to this while you're running on a treadmill or whatever you're doing right now, it doesn't mean you have to do just marketing. If you like, I don't know, flying planes or whatever it is, collecting stamps, do that. You'll be very, very happy for the rest of your life. So really do what you love. It's extremely important, because we as a generation, we really got sidelined into engineering or doctor or whatever it is when we were growing up, etc. If you do what you love, no, you'll really love what you do.
Nice. So if you were to invite uh, for your dream dinner 3 people, who would you like to invite? They can be alive or dead. And why would you invite them? And what would you learn from them?
So one would be Travis Kalanick,
Okay.
because I think Travis did what people thought was impossible to do in a business context around the world, and he did it across. He did it in US, and people say, "Hey, you can do it in US. Obviously, you can't do it in South America." You did it in South America. In India, I remember my dad said, "Oh, you're gonna teach cab drivers how to operate navigation." This is 2008, 2009. This is impossible. I have seen. Now look at it. Every person, whether he's an auto or a rickshaw driver, knows how to navigate, right? So he did what I thought was impossible: globalized cab sharing, which is absolutely incredible. Second is, I think, Steve Jobs. In a lot of context, I think Steve Jobs has been an inspiration for a lot of marketeers who wanted to break through. And I don't like follow all everything, and I don't agree to everything he says, for example, but it's there. And then third one is third one would be Eric Schmidt of Google. I
Okay.
think with the founders, they had incredible tech knowledge. I think Eric Schmidt really took Google to a different levels. And if you read his books, etc., he understood how a business functions. Sometimes not just necessary to have the genius who just knows how uh, uh, just how this thing works, the tech works, but also how do you monetize it in general. So those would be sort of my this thing. So really, really, like three guests. It's not possible, I know, but it's just like you gave me a fantasy land to wish for, so I wished for the fantasy land in general. So those
Great.
are like.
I'm sure it'll happen one of these days. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Srinjoy. I think it was a lovely conversation. Lots to learn. I think not the traditional marketing podcast that I have actually been different points of view. Obviously, you work in cutting edge industry. Therefore, the views that you had, the examples that you gave were very, very interesting. And thanks for your time. It was lovely having a conversation with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was lovely to be part of Contraminds, and hope your viewers and your listeners had a great time listening, and they learned a few things which will leave some food for thought on their plates. Right. So thank you so much for having me. It was indeed a pleasure.